So, like I said, we've got a bunch of different props. I've got like big pillows, bolsters, yoga blocks. So have a lot of props around you, and you can always pull more in. And if you came in a little bit late, if you have any questions during the practice, just unmute yourself, ask the question, because sometimes getting the props set up in restorative can be the hardest part, uh, especially if you have not taken a restorative practice before, and with it being online. Um, you know, restorative yoga, I don't think necessarily gets the love that it deserves because it's not as flashy or showy a practice. So it's not necessarily something that we could take a cool picture of and put it up on Instagram and people are like, "Ooh, I want to try that or I want to do that." But the benefits physically, mentally, emotionally are so far reaching. And Yishun was talking about Erin. She's my business partner with Sweet Fire Gatherings, and we did our first teacher training this year, and it was in restorative yoga. So setting up the foundations for teachers to teach it. And one of the stories I relayed during that training is the fact that when I was a pharmacist, I was super unhappy and really depressed and really stressed. And not really recognizing it because I didn't have a strong body mind connection back then. But every day when I was working in pharmacy, I would wake up the next day and I would have been sleeping all night with my fingers and fists clenched really tightly. And sometimes I would wake up with cuts, like with my fingernails and my palms the next day. And the thing is, when we have chronic stress, which might be something that we're all dealing with at a low level right now, anyways, when we have low levels of that every day, one of the effects is an effect on the musculoskeletal system. So we carry an inherent tension in our body. And it might not be even to the level where we notice it. But even when I was sleeping, my body was carrying that muscular tension. I wasn't consciously doing it or consciously aware of it. So, one of the things that we do with restorative yoga is we bring in so many props so the body doesn't need to or have to work muscularly at all. If we're feeling a stretch, we want it to be one that feels really relaxing, and we're not trying to do like a yin practice where we're getting mild or big sensation. This really is about letting the body be in a yoga shape, but let it be so supportive that that muscular system can get shut off. Sorry, just letting people. So as we work through practice tonight, sometimes it's going to feel a little bit like, am I even doing anything? And that's a great place to be because we're moving our acting system, sympathetic nervous system, if we're in that chronic stress state or acute stress state, we're moving into our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's our rest and digest system. And that has far reaching benefits that have been clinically studied in regards to health conditions like heart disease, anxiety, depression. There's so much that that has to do with, along with things, just like dealing with compassion and empathy on a day-to-day basis with people that we run into. So as we move through practice tonight, think about pulling in more and more props, and there can never be too many when we're in a restorative practice. Let's come to a comfortable seat. Those of y'all that have joined in just now, thank y'all for coming in. Make sure you have a lot of props. Everyone's muted so you can play your own music, but if you have any questions about the postures, feel free to unmute yourself, ask the question, or show me your video and we can kind of figure it out from there. So as we come to our seat at the beginning, we'll either close our eyes or focus our gaze. Letting yourself be present with this moment. And in this moment, whatever that might be for us, we might be in a really good space right now. We might be in a really trying space or challenging space. But seeing if no matter what that is for us in this moment, if we can work towards for the next hour accepting it as it is, and just sitting down, relaxing the body down into that. And as we move through the practice, you might watch those ebbs and flows of your thought processes or the movement of your breath, the beat of your heart, and that focus on really being with the body, quieting and stilling the body, noticing the breath can have really profound effect on us. So in each moment, just allowing yourself to speak heavier and deeper. Let's bring one hand to our belly, one hand to our heart. Connect to the movement of your breath in your belly. Feel the beating of your heart. Maybe how fast or how slow either of them are moving. How full or how deep they feel. And then setting an intention or dedication for your practice if you wish. And we'll share with each other a big breath. So deep breath in through the nose, fill up the belly. Out through the mouth, let it go. Slowly opening the eyes or lifting the gaze. Anytime you need that big release in practice, feel free. You're at home, you're with maybe one other person or by yourself, to do those active exhales to really release and let go. So we're going to work into child's pose at first. We want to make sure we're really comfy in this one. What I like to do is take a blanket and open it up underneath my knees. So feel free to do that. And then some different options. I'd grab one of your pillows or your yoga bolster, whatever you have, and a block or two blocks. So one way we can do it, have the blanket underneath the knees a little bit wider than hip width apart if we're going to have the bolster in between the thighs. I tend to like it angled up, and you can go whatever height you want to underneath the bolster or underneath your pillow. And then from here, walking out, laying your chest down, and you can choose to come down with your forehead or chin down, or you can come with one cheek on the bolster looking off to one side or the other. Now another option is to use another block, and you can always sneak this underneath the end of the pillow or the bolster that's closest to you. And then you can always take that other block up that's at the head angle. This is going to give you a little bit more cushion underneath the belly and support for the lower back. So this might be preferable for some of us. In either one, you can have your hands off to the side, or you can scoop underneath if you've got like that blank space between the blocks, and hug underneath if you want to, or wrap your arms underneath and rest yourself down. If anyone's got any knee issues and you need another variation where you're out longer on the bolster, let me know, or on the pillow, and I can show you a different variation. And then if we've got any sort of ankle issues, another good thing to do if we've got like inflexible ankles is to take the blanket and just roll it up so you have a little ridge underneath the ankles, so we don't just have the weight bearing down. Those are a couple of modifications or variations on it. Again, if we're having a hard time getting comfy, just turn on your audio for a second and turn on your video. Let me see you, and I can show you some other variations if you need it. I'll talk us into the postures. I might, during some of the poses, bring up awareness to the breath, or just some thought, or maybe something about the practice. But otherwise, with restorative, I try to stay a little bit more quiet, less intrusion from yet another voice We might be on social media a lot more. We might be on Netflix or Amazon a lot more lately, and we're just getting a lot of input on top of the lot that we already have in our own heads, probably. So I'm going to try to give space in this practice to let you be with your practice, your body, your music, whatever you're putting in at your own home. But again, if you have any questions, know that I'm here. And for this one, I'll cue you if you have your head turned one way about halfway through when to turn it the other way. If you haven't done restorative yoga practice before, the holds are a bit longer, more yin like if we've done yin for that time, to really let the body start to move into a sense of relaxation and ease and stillness. So we'll spend a little time with each one, but of course, if you need to come out of any of them early or take less time or longer, completely your choice to do that. If you have one cheek on your bolster or pillow, go ahead, turn it in the opposite direction. One of the techniques that we have available to help us move even more in that direction of rest and digest is belly breathing. And so as you have the bolster, the pillow underneath your belly, if it's there, if you don't have it out front of the knees, then you might take a few cycles of breath and really feel the pressure of the belly moving into the bolster and away from the bolster, letting yourself drop into that rhythm. So we're in our supported child's pose. And every moment, thinking about letting the body be released more and more. And one technique to help ease us into that is that belly breath. We'll have a few more breaths in this restorative child's pose. In these last few moments, you might notice the back of the body, the spine, maybe your ankles and your hips. See how they're receiving this posture. And then from our child's pose, if you have your arms wrapped around your bolster and underneath, you'll start to bring your palms off out to the sides. Press into your palms, start to press your chest and your belly away from the props. And then here, we're going to have these still out in front of us, so they'll be more or less there for our next pose. But you might want to move back away from them. You can lean off one hip or the other. Take your time, extend your legs out, give them a little shake, a little bit of movement. In my own personal restorative practices, I like to try to drop in more and more. So I keep my movement in between as minimal as possible to release that previous pose, but that doesn't mean that's how you have to do it. So if you need to move a little bit more after each posture of stillness, feel free to move as freely as you need to here. We're going to come into a supported wide-legged forward fold, and we're going to use a lot of the props that we already have set up in front of us. I'm going to take the blanket and fold it again for myself just to create a little extra height for me to sit up on, and I'm going to sit up on the lip of it. That's going to be even more important for those of us that have tighter hamstrings. So it's going to give us, or a tight back today, it's going to give us a little bit of extra height. It might even be a pillow. So go up as high here as you need to. We're not going to sit all the way back on it, so our booty's flat. We want kind of that connection point of the hamstring towards the glute to be rocking off of that prop, so we're tilting forward. Now you can take your legs as wide as you want to here. One thing that we might need if we have tighter hamstrings is a little pillow or a little blanket roll or a book. Anything can go underneath the knees if we need them to be a little bit bent and supported there, that's fine. Or you can make your split more narrow. For this one, we'll pull in the props as tight to us as we want. One other option, if you have a wall behind you that you can move easily to and you need the support, you can always sit with your booty up against the wall and have that kind of help push you forward. But we'll pull our props in really close to us. Some of us might need to go higher on the block and towards the belly. So if we didn't have one there, you might need to move one in between the thighs. And then we'll have the block underneath the far end. Typically, the one underneath the pelvis is a setting lower, but you can adjust there. If we don't have blocks, no problem. You can always just stack more pillows. So as we come into the forward fold, we just want to be really cozy and comfy here. This one, we might get a little bit more sensation of stretch on the back of the legs or the back of the body, but we don't want it to be anything that's really going to pull us out of a state of relaxation. So this one, you can pull in more pillows. We can pull in more props underneath the hamstrings. You might want something at the far ends to rest your head on. And again, we can hug underneath, have your hands rest on your legs or just alongside your body. So if you have any trouble getting set up in this wide-legged forward fold, let me know. Again, your split is open or as wide as you want it to be. As many props as we need out in front of us. And then we're just going to round down and try to let the body release and relax go as much as possible. So the body is getting the benefit of training in different shapes, but it's not being activated in the muscular system as much. And then again, you can turn into that deep belly breathing if you want to. Feel free to close your eyes. And there was a poem I came across from William Wordsworth that it just spoke to me during this time right now. And I thought I'd read it for tonight's practice. And if it's something that speaks to you, you can allow yourself to, vibe on it and think about it during the practice. And if it's something that doesn't resonate with you, feel free to listen to the words and then let them go. So it's called I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not be but gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth this show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. And I apologize if the microphone is picking up my dog snoring on the couch a little bit. From here, we'll again start to make our way back up. If we had our arms wrapped underneath, you can bring the palms out to the sides. Take as much time as you need to start to come out of this restorative wide-legged forward fold. You can go ahead, take a moment, move. If you had a pillow or bolster stacked onto the blocks, just move it off to the side for a moment. And you can also move the blocks off to the side. We'll use them in the next pose, but we might want a little bit of movement here. So if you do, you can draw your legs back through center. We're about to move into a supported back bend, but if you want to lean back in your palms and take a little seated back bend, if you need to windshield wiper out your knees or shake out your legs, you can take a few moments to do that now. That poem kind of spoke to me because this week it does feel like there are points and times where it gets a little dark or where it becomes a bit mindless here being by myself. And so trying to remember, like he reflected on those daffodils, every once in a while, if we find a little bright spot, if we're out walking and we see a beautiful plant or, just allowing ourselves at those points and times when we need it to pull to those things that bring us a little bit of joy right now. So for our next pose, we're going to work a supported back bend. Have a yoga bolster or a thicker pillow for underneath your back. And then we'll use our blocks or thick books underneath our feet. You can also use 2 long pillows, and you could have couch pillows or anything like that. So I'll talk us through those options. And another thing that we can add to this one is a yoga strap. Some people like to use it, so I'll show you how to use it for this one. If your yoga bolster or pillow that's going to go underneath your back is super thick, you might need a blanket roll to go underneath the tops of your shoulders. So feel free to have your blanket here as well. We're going to take our longer pillow, so our yoga bolster or couch pillow, and we'll lay it on our mat. And then the blocks are going to go underneath our feet. This is going to be something that we just kind of have to guess at first, and we might have to adjust. But eventually when we lay down, the tops of our shoulders are going to come off of this pillow, and the pillow is going to support underneath our shoulder blades. So our legs are going to reach out. So you can kind of sit on your pillow or sit beside it, lean back and guesstimate about where you would be here, and where your feet land, go ahead, lay your blocks down there. And it's usually helpful to go side to side on the mat. That way you've got more room for the feet to lay on. The yoga strap just helps because we're going to have our legs extended out. If we're really externally rotated, our legs just kind of flop out. Sometimes the body tries to turn on to keep them pulling in. This strap just helps bind them together. This could be a belt or anything like that. So if you do want to try that out, you're going to put it on both feet and slip it up above the thighs, right above the knees. Once we get set up onto our bolster, onto our pillow, we're going to start to lie down and kind of take our time to figure out, I can tell I'm too far back on my bolster because it's not coming underneath my shoulder blades. So what we want are the tops of the shoulders either touching our blanket or our mat, and basically underneath the shoulder blades, so just this part of our chest starts to lift up more. We want that supported. So I'm going to scoot down a little bit more, going to make sure my shoulder blades are more or less supported, and I'm going to rock the tops of my shoulders off of this pillow or bolster. Legs will go down long. My strap's not tight enough, so you can always come in and tighten that up or move your blocks. You want the spine to be supported, the shoulder blades to be supported, and what we kind of want here is heart level or like nipple level to be up higher, so higher than our throat, higher than our head. But tops of the shoulders being supported again by either a blanket, another small thin pillow, or by our mat, depending on how thick our bolster is. If you didn't have blocks, you could always have like one of your long bed pillows be the kind of fake blocks, and you would just have a pillow to pillow here. And then as you move into this supported back bend, the arms can go out to the sides. They can reach back alongside your ears. You can have your hands on your belly. If it is a lot for your shoulders to open them out this way, if you need to put little blankets or little pillows underneath your arms, that's always an option too. So a lot of times in our restorative practices and yin practices, we'll do back bends where the pelvis is higher. This one, we want to think about, again, this kind of heart nipple level being raised up. There have been some studies that have dealt with the head being either in line with the heart or below the heart. And it shows that for most people, it tends to decrease the heart rate and decrease blood pressure. So we're kind of playing that out with this variation of the back bend, trying to get that physiological response moving into a more relaxed state for the body just by how we're setting it. Again, pull in as many props as you need. And if you need any help figuring this one out, just let me know. In this one, you could also place an eye pillow or a little towel over your eye, or close your eyes depending on the brightness of your room. And this might be a nice one to work what's called Dirga 3-part breath. So as you breathe in through the nose, you first expand the belly a little bit, and then we expand the lower ribs, and then heart level lifts up. And as we breathe out through the nose, that heart level upper chest relaxes, mid lower ribs relax, and then the belly draws back in. So you might focus on a few rounds, kind of watching that wave or feeling that wave up and down, being even more exaggerated with that heart being lifted up a little bit. Okay, so if we had our legs strapped up, you can always, if it feels comfortable here, start to bend the knees, bring the feet closer in towards that bolster. If you're comfortable drawing your knees in towards your chest, you can always reach down, slip that strap down around the feet, and just take it off to the side. Here, if you want to bring your feet on either side of the bolster or pillow, you can do a little windshield wiper of the knees if that feels good. You could also take the legs up in the air and just give them a little shake if we need to. And then from here, I tend to like to do less work if I'm in my practice. If you need more engagement, you can press up. Otherwise, just rolling off one side or the other Coming onto one shoulder, pressing up through that opposite palm, and you can start to lift your way up. As you come out of that back bend, you might need a little something here if you do, if you need to move in your head and your neck or move through your shoulders, feel free to take your time to do that here. For our next pose, we're going to need one pillow. I like to use two, so that's going to be an option. And some people might need a blanket or something to go underneath the shoulder for our twist. So our blocks or our books, or if we had a second pillow, we'll go ahead and move them out of the way. I'm going to use my bed pillow to go underneath my thigh, since I'm going to use my bolster to go underneath my spine. If you only need one pillow, that's a great option too. So I'm going to lay on my left side first. It might look opposite to you. It doesn't matter what side we start on. Come to lay on one outer hip, one rib cage, and then we're going to grab one of our props, our pillow, whatever it is. It's going to go underneath that top leg and thigh. From here, I'm going to use this one to wedge back behind my spine, just so I kind of stay locked into my twist. Because sometimes I feel like I'm rocking back and forth, and I like to be really wedged in. So feel free to try it with another bolster or pillow back behind you. Some people like it, some people don't. From here, we'll lay all the way down, and that bottom arm, if you want to, take your top arm for a second, press into the floor, and kind of extend out even longer through that bottom arm, so we come more on the side of the rib cage. So we're going ahead and opening up the chest even more towards the ceiling, and then we're going to open up into a twist. So that top arm, it's going to reach up towards the ceiling, and then it's going to reach back behind us. So you might find you want a little roll underneath your head or your neck. My top shoulder's not touching the mat. It's a little strenuous for me right now, so what I'd probably do is take my blanket and fold it up and just kind of wedge it underneath that shoulder. Some of y'all might like a little sensation of stretch there if it's not too much. So if you don't need anything underneath that shoulder, that's fine. And if you don't need anything back behind you, typically if we have a bigger prop, pillow, bolster underneath our top leg, we don't need as much of a wedge back behind us, so you can play with whether you have one back there or not. So we're moving into a twist. We've really rotated our chest more open. Your arms can go out to the sides if you need to bend the elbows or even bring them alongside your hips or anything like that. Feel free to adjust. And with your head and your neck, you can look any direction here that you want to. So make sure your head and your neck feel really good. So lots of support underneath top thigh, shin, and knee. More support than we normally have behind the back if we want it for a twist. And then lots of support for the head, neck, and shoulders if we need it, much more so than we would in a more active twist that we wouldn't hold as long in another practice. So feel free to pull in as many props as you want to here. With our twist, we tend not to have as much space in the belly to find that breath. So in whatever side is exposed up towards the ceiling, you might instead send the awareness and the depth of your breath through that side of your torso, through that side of your rib cage, and let that find expansion with every breath in and contraction and release with every breath out. Really direct. And try to allow the body to feel heavier here. Think about your body and the props melding and becoming one. So there's less a sense of separation between you and the energy of everything that you're resting on and everything that's around you, so that you can just ease your way, melt your way into all of that space that's around. So from our twist on whatever side we chose first, you can start to pull that arm that you reached up towards the ceiling, pull it back. From here, we'll roll onto that side of the body that we started on, and you can start to press through that bottom rib cage, through your bottom arm to start to lift your chest back up away from the mat. From here, if you want a little hip stretch, you can take one for a moment. Just rotate all the way down. Let your knee slide out on that pillow that it was on. Let your chest rotate down towards the floor for a moment. So just letting a little stretch come into that inner thigh, into the hip only if you want it. Otherwise, you could have pressed that, giving yourself a little bit of movement after that twist. That's fine too. So from here, we'll start to press our way up so that we can move into our other side. If you need to swap your props around, you can. If you have the same size on both sides. So as we get our props set up, I'm going to turn away from you to show this opposite side so you can see everything work from the opposite. But we'll lay on the opposite side of our body, that rib cage, outer hip. Bring our top leg as we bend the knee on top of that prop pillow bolster that's out in front of us. Start to lay down all the way down, and in the bottom arm, we're going to reach out even further. So we can use our top palm, rotate our chest a little bit more up towards the ceiling, and then lay our head down. Again, I like to use this extra wedge back behind my spinal column, so that's an option if you want to use a pillow there. And then our top arm, we'll take it up towards the ceiling, start to reach it back into our twist. So this should feel typically like much more of a twisting through the shoulders and the upper chest rather than taking so much weight in the lower half of the body, like we tend to do when we cross our knees in a twist. If our shoulder is not resting down on the mat and that feels uncomfortable at all, fold up your blanket, take another little pillow, a little towel, whatever it might be, create a wedge there, pillow underneath your head or blanket roll if you need it. Again, if we have anything kind of hanging in space, not supported, the body tends to fight because we have to use energy to hold ourselves away from being grounded down to something. So in this practice, feel free. We're not cheating ourselves out of anything to pull in more and more props. Let the body really turn off. And it is in that doing little or doing less that our body receives the multitude, and there are many, scientifically supported even, of this style of practice. It can be hard when we're told to relax or told to let go, so you don't need to try to force it. Just let yourself be as supported as you can. Maybe draw your attention to your breath over and over if you're getting pulled away in thoughts, or put on your favorite relaxing song, or maybe visualize your favorite person or place or your intention. And let that be something that you tether your mind to. And often when that starts to quiet or starts to focus, our body's not jumping with it. And so without even forcing it or thinking about it so much, we find more release in the body. So use one of those guideposts if you need one. And whatever side of the body is facing up to the ceiling on this side, you might take the next few cycles of breath, and again, rather than sending it so much into the belly, send it through and to that side of the body. Feel the space that's created as we learn to direct our breath into new spaces that it may not normally fit. Okay, from our twist on this side, that arm that we reached up towards the ceiling, we're going to draw it back up towards the ceiling so it can come along beside us on the floor mat. If you want that little hip stretch for a moment, press into that palm so you can lift up onto your forearms. You'll rotate your chest towards the floor. So that opposite leg, you'll need to tuck the toes under, and you'll just roll the hip that's not on the pillow or bolster towards the mat, chest towards the mat. The knee will be opening off to the side. You just get a little stretch through the inner thigh for the outer hip if we need it there for a moment. If you're doing a practice at home, that can be a nice counter posture to do. You can settle into this onto your chest and chin for a couple of minutes after that if you ever want to. But from here, we'll start to roll back or shift back away from that. And then we're going to start to move into our final pose, which we're going to treat as our Shavasana. If you're close to a wall, you can always do it legs up the wall. That's great. But if we want to check it out with our props or we're not close to a wall that we can access, then I'll show you the way to do it here. We'll grab our blocks, thick books. You could also stack several pillows instead if you wanted to do that. I say put them up on the middle or the higher setting. Depending on how long our femur bone is, we might need to go higher or lower. So we'll put them towards the back edge of our mat. We'll place them wide left to right, and we're going to lay our bolster on top of it. So this is a way to cheat legs up the wall that I'll teach in restorative practices because there won't be enough wall space for all the students. From here, feel free to have another pillow underneath your head or a blanket roll if you need to cover up with anything, or some people like the sensation of weight on their belly. You can always put something on top of you. If we're going to use this setup, come to one hip, same idea as against the wall. We'll roll ourselves up, bending the knees. We'll place the calves on the bolster on top of the blocks, and we'll start to work ourselves down to our backs. Again, you can have any support for the head and the neck that you want to here. You could have 2 or 3 pillows stacked so that you go up higher if that feels okay. If you do want to do it with the legs straight, some people like that option. You would just move this setup a little bit further away and instead have your ankles and the lower half of your calves. Sometimes that can be a lot underneath the knees though, so that's another variation. And then if you were to do legs up the wall, same idea, one hip against the wall, you can put yourself up onto a blanket or bolster so you have a little bit more height underneath the booty, lean back onto a forearm, and you swing your legs up as far away from the wall as we need to go. Lay back and find your shape that way. If you do legs up the wall, that can be another place where you use the strap around your legs to help bind them in so they don't have to work so hard to stay up. So take some time here if you need to make any final adjustments in this variation of legs up the wall. If you have something to cover your eyes with, you can place it across your eyes right now. Your arms can reach off to the side or hands on your belly. And we'll take a breath in through the nose. Let it go through the mouth. And spend a few minutes So allowing your next breath in to be just a little bit deeper in through the mouth, and letting it go through the mouth. And take a little time if you need to move your head a little bit left, a little bit right. If you need to move the legs at all, you can always bring the feet to the pillows and then take them up towards the ceiling and shake them out a little bit if you need to. Or hug them in towards the chest, rock around a little bit, make little knee circles. When you feel ready, you can roll yourself over to one side or the other. Take a moment there. And then from there, using the support of your palms, starting to lift your way up. Find any props that you need or want. Give yourself a seat on the mat. We'll sit up a little bit taller here. Close our eyes or focus our gaze. Restorative, if it's not something that we do very often, especially if we're a go-getter or a type A personality, it can be a really challenging practice. And it can be seen almost as something unnecessary or as if we're not doing anything. But if you do research into the negative effects of low level amounts of stress that run chronically, if we do the research on the benefits of the things that restorative yoga offers us, we'd see that there's a huge benefit, again, for the physical body, mental body, emotional body, in the sense of doing nothing. There's so much that's being done within us. So we'll take a moment, bring one hand to heart, one hand to belly. Connect to ourselves on all levels at the end of this practice. And we might end up receiving someone that feels slightly different than the person we met at the beginning. Take a deep breath in through the nose, letting it go. Bow to yourself. Receive your dedication to your practice. Receive your energy at the end of this practice. I bow to you. I thank you so much again for joining me on this newer medium and spending this time with me. It's a little different teaching on here with the screens blacked out because normally in restorative practices, I can keep an eye on everybody and help everyone get settled in. So I hope that it all made sense for y'all during the practice and you were nice and comfy. But if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to put all these up on YouTube later in case you want to take them. And thanks, everybody.